How's it going, guys? Cameron here with Canadian Gamer coming at you with another video. Now today we are doing a definitive list. Canadian Gamer's top 20 racing games on the Sega Genesis / Mega Drive. Again, we talked about it on the channel a couple of days ago. We did a video response to Old Style Gaming, I believe the name of the channel was. And look, I don't want to bash the guy. He's doing what he has to do. I had a conversation with him. It wasn't really a conversation. We were just going back and forth in the comment threads. And I was talking to him like, listen, how do you come up with a list like this? Like, trying to explain to him how ridiculous it is. And he eventually divulged to me. He's like, listen, I know I don't talk about each game and how I came to this conclusion of how I have this list. He's like, I don't even like talking on video. He's like, I talk on video because it has to do with monetization. That's exactly what he said to me. He's like, if I don't talk on video and I just do a top 20 and it's just a slideshow, then basically what he's saying is he won't get as many views, his ad revenue won't be as good. So more or less what he's trying to get at is he's putting out videos for monetization. He's not doing it because he's truly passionate about it. And I explained to him, I said, listen, YouTube's not a career. And he said he tried to make it a career at one point and it didn't work out. But, it seems to me like he just took several games that he was familiar with from, playing them probably on the Amiga or maybe even the Commodore 64. And, some of these games were ported to the Genesis. And he took those and put them on the list, and then he filled in the empty spots with other games that he probably looked up on Wikipedia and saw, a list of Genesis games and saw games he could plug in there. Because his list it was baffling. It didn't seem authentic. There's some games he had on his list that they're not bad, but we're talking top 20 here. And he's got games like Micro Machines right at the top. And he's got Super Skid Marks, which is relatively unknown. I don't even think he came out in North America. And he's got Formula One and MD. I'm rambling again, but I'm just saying his list was really bizarre. It was really bizarre. So we're gonna do a definitive list here today. I've got my monitor on an angle here so I can look at it. I don't have my crib sheet in front of me. Before we get into that, I just want to quickly show you guys what I picked up today. I was out in a boot. And I picked up a few things. So I went to Habitat for Humanity, and for 99 cents I picked up Bruce Springsteen, Darkness on the Edge of Town. I have this on vinyl. Really good album. So I couldn't believe I found it on CD, so I definitely picked it up. And there was a stack of older, I don't know if you consider it vintage, automobile magazines. I had a whole stack of them. And the one that really piqued my interest here was this one, Best Track Cars. Now, it's pretty cool because on the front cover, you've got, at the time, the new Lotus Elise. Back in the day, I had someone that lived down the road from me that actually had one of these, an orange one. And then, you've got the 430 Scuderia on the front as well, the Ferrari 430 Scuderia. One of my most favorite Ferraris of all time. And then, of course, you've got the Dodge Viper, the GTS. Might be the RT10, I don't know, GTS. I look forward to taking a closer look at this magazine later tonight. Good bathroom reading material. And I went over to Value Village, and I used to have this controller back in the day for the PC. I got rid of it, and I shouldn't have, and I got another one. The one I used to have was purple, and this one is silver. It's a Logitech wireless controller, mint condition, $399, and this is what I want to use going forward when doing my speed runs using the computer. So yeah. Happy to have this in the collection. Mint condition. Awesome. Awesome. And then I went over to the pawn shop and I picked up Taito Legends. So I'm going to be using this for speed running. There's over 29 original arcade hits on here, including, what do we have here? We've got Rastin. A lot of the older games too. But I don't want to talk too much about this. But yeah, I'm excited to take a look at this. A lot of the Taito games are really expensive, can't speak, to purchase physical copies for on original consoles. So yeah, to have this on the original Xbox is really cool. And I picked up A Boy and His Blob. Used to have this on the NES. Loved it, loved it, loved it. I don't think this is going to be as good as the original David Crane release. But I've been looking for a good copy of this, and I finally got it. It's just unfortunate. The case is a bit cracked, unfortunately. And I finally picked up Hot Wheels Track Attack. I've been wanting this for a while, ever since I saw it on Metal Jesus Rocks Wii Hidden Gems video. This looks really good. You know, Hot Wheels Unleashed on the modern consoles looks amazing too. But yeah, I'm happy to have this. At the pawn shop, it was 2 Wii games for $10. So I got Track Attack. Awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Wrapping up my Wii collection. So without further ado, let's get into the top 20. I'm going to go through this really quickly. I'm not really going to go into in-depth detail about why I chose each game. If you want to hit me up in the comments, I can further elaborate. So, let me just pick my nose here. Number 20, we've got The Duel, Test Drive 2. It is actually a really good game if you've played it. It's really good. The port is quite different than what was released on the Amiga, and it's totally different than the version that we got on the Super NES. But it is a good game, absolutely. Really cool box art. You've got the Porsche 959 Turbo, which is my favorite Porsche of all time. I don't think you don't put turbo on the end of that. It's just Porsche 959. And I think the Ferrari F40 is on it as well. So that's why they call it the Duel, right? Those two cars. Number 19, Hard Driven. Gets a bad rap. It's actually a really good physics-based game. 18, you've got, I believe it was the sequel, Race Driven. Very similar to Hard Driven. You could almost put those together. Number 17, Road Blasters. Really good game. Really, really, really good. Number 16, we've got Street Racer. So I played this recently. The game never came out in North America. It is a technical showpiece for what the Genesis could pull off, via software. What else could we say about it? Yeah, it's really good. Considering that the Genesis didn't have Mode 7, if you will. Street Racer on the Genesis, on the Super NES, uses Mode 7. But I actually find, I don't know, I haven't played the Super NES version, but I find this the straightforward racing of the Genesis version is more linear. I think it actually looks better on the Genesis. I was pleasantly surprised with Street Racer. Is it as good as Mario Kart? No. Is it a really good game? Yeah, I would definitely put it in my top 20, but I'm not going to put it in my top 10. I'm just not. There's too many heavy hitters. But yeah, I did want to include that on there. I don't want to exclude a game just because it wasn't released in North America. So if you're interested about Street Racer, if you haven't played it, definitely check it out. You'll have some fun with it, absolutely. Number 15, we've got Road Rash 3. So Road Rash 3, it's a curious case because if you've ever played it, it's not a bad game. It gets a bad rap. Is it the worst out of the original trilogy? Yes. But it's more to do with the digitalized sprites more than anything. The gameplay at its heart, at its core, is still there. It plays just as good as Road Rash, the original, and Road Rash 2. The other reason why Road Rash 3 is higher up on the list, as far as the music is concerned, you could definitely... I think it's not even an argument. I think the music in Road Rash 2, and especially the original Road Rash, in my opinion, is heads and tails above what was being provided in Road Rash 3. But nonetheless, I would definitely include Road Rash 3 on a list of top 20. If you're on a deserted island with a Sega Genesis and you could only bring 20 racing games with you, absolutely, you got to put Road Rash 3 on there. It is still a good game. It is. Number 14, we put Virtual Racing on there. So I think Virtual Racing on the Genesis is amazing. I've had a lot of fun with it. This is another game that gets dogged by people in the community. If you talk to the digital foundries of the world, they'll throw it under the bus. They'll be like, this is nowhere near, what we had in the arcade. Look at this frame rate. Oh my God. Is Virtual Racing as good as the version we got on the 32X? Absolutely not. However, it's not incompetent. It's a very good racing game. There's a lot of fun to be had. The frame rate doesn't really bug me all that much. I still find it fast enough, to be honest with you. A game can still be fast and have poor frame rate. Don't forget that. It is very playable. It is impressive what Sega did with the special chip that they put inside the cart to pull that game off. I can't remember the name of it. What is it called? The SVP chip? And yeah, I love it. I love Virtual Racing. Unfortunately, I have to put it at 14 because, again, there's just way too many other heavy hitters that we're going to have to get to in just a moment. Number 13, we've got the original Road Rash. You cannot do a top 20 list and not have this game on here. So that's what we're saying. The other guy's list, he had Road Rash 3 and Road Rash 2 on his list, and he omitted Road Rash. I think the original Road Rash is my favorite out of the three. And we'll get to it in a few minutes, but I understand, Road Rash 2 is probably the better of the two games. So for that reason, I've got Road Rash at 13. Number 12, I've got Lotus Turbo Challenge. I really love Lotus Turbo Challenge. The problem with it, and feel free to argue with me, but it's fucking tough. It's tougher than a cheap steak. Can you beat it? Yes. You're going to have to use the password system. I did see a guy recently play through the entire game on one playthrough. Insane. So yeah, Lotus Turbo Challenge. It is a really good game. Especially, you can pick it up next to nothing. I've played it on my channel numerous times, and I have nothing but glowing praise for it. I think it's really good. I just think it's just a little bit too difficult, and that takes away from some of the enjoyment. But it still lands in the top 20, absolutely. At number 11, we've got Kawasaki Super Bike Challenge. Wow, what a game. So this game, it very much plays out kind of like Formula One, the racing game for the Sega Genesis, which I've been playing a lot lately as well, except you're obviously on a super bike. And it was impressive what the old Mega Drive Genesis was able to pull off with this game. And this is another example, whereas if you go online and look at comparisons between Kawasaki Superbike Challenge on the Genesis and on the Super NES, night and day. Night and day. Because again, the developers of Formula One and Kawasaki Superbike realized if they wanted to pull off that speed with those polygons on the Super NES version, they were probably going to have to use the Super FX chip, and that cost money. So they didn't. They ended up doing a lot more hand-drawn sprites on the Super NES version. Super NES version, I don't think it looks as good. Doesn't run as good. It's not even the same game. So yeah, we've got Kawasaki Superbike Challenge at number 11. So now we enter the top 10. And this was so difficult to narrow this down. And by the way, there's a lot of honorable mentions that I left off the list here. Unfortunately, I couldn't fit them all on here. You've got RC Pro AM that came out on the Genesis. Championship Pro AM. Mario Andretti Racing's not bad either. I haven't played it enough to form a real good opinion on that one. So number 10, we've got Outrun 2019. Wow, what a pleasant surprise this was. Go back a few years ago. I, like a lot of you guys out there, had a jaded opinion on a game that I had never even played. And it wasn't until Alpha Nerd Entertainment, he took out his flashlight and he put a big light on this game. He shone a light on it. Is that how you say it? And I went and tried it out, and I was blown away by it. You've got incredible music, awesome replay value. The tracks are really fun, great for speed running. Again, the music's incredible. I like the graphics. I think it runs at 60 frames a second. I have nothing bad to say about Outrun 2019. And if you were doing your own top 20 list and you wanted to put that one higher up, closer to number 1, I wouldn't argue with you. It's awesome. At number 9, now that I look at this, maybe I've got it ass backwards, but number 9, I put Outrunners. So, yeah, maybe Outrunners probably should have been number 10. Outrunners, what a weird game this is. So, This is notorious for being considered like the worst racing game on the Sega Genesis. Like, it's so bad. The original developers talk about how, like, they openly admit that it wasn't a good port compared to the original arcade version. However, I went and played it recently, and like I always say, you can find a redeeming quality even in the worst game out there. And crazy enough, crazy as it sounds, as bad as this game is, it's extremely fun to play. It's a guilty pleasure. And I think that's a really cool thing because a lot of gamers out there have jaded opinions on this game, and you might be able to find it out there in the wild for a good price. Again, I've got it at number 9 on the list. Maybe I don't have that in there, right? You know, maybe Outrunners should be higher up on the list. But I do think it should be in the list of top 20. It has endless replay value. Again, especially if you're speed running. It's got really good music. You can play as the virtual formula car from Virtual Racing in it. It's got cool voiceovers. Again, you've got so many different routes from the East Coast to the West Coast. You've got over, gosh, I don't even know. How many routes do you have? 10? 11? 12? You have a lot of different routes. It's really good. Hopefully I can find it in the wild one of these days, and I will definitely pick it up. That one is shocking to me. That is a game I never thought I would say I would enjoy, but I really do enjoy it. It's a lot of fun, and it has a lot of charm. At number 8, I've got Chase HQ 2. Really awesome car combat game. I've had so much fun with it. A great game from Taito. And a very sought-after game on the Genesis. One of the more expensive racing games, if you will. Does it have the best control in the world? You know, do the cars control as fluidly as an Outrun? No. But anyone who's played this game and has, you know, had the luxury of becoming intimately involved with this game, you come away with a sense of satisfaction when you beat it. I remember the first time I played that game, I beat it on my first try. And you know what? I just wanted to jump back in and play it some more. Yeah, Chase HQ2 on the Sega Genesis is amazing. There is a version of Chase HQ on the Super NES where it's first-person view. A very fun game as well, but very different from Chase HQ2 on the Genesis. So if you're on the fence about Chase HQ2, definitely check it out. At number 7, we've got Road Rash 2. What else could be said about Road Rash 2? You know, it's the racing genre's equivalent of Splatterhouse 2 on the Genesis. You know, this is the definitive Road Rash game. Obviously, the Road Rash that came out later on the 3DO, the PlayStation 1, and the Saturn is awesome as well. But for the Genesis, you know, for most of you guys and gals out there, you're probably going to agree with me and say that Road Rash 2 is the best Road Rash game on the Genesis, and that's why it lands at number 7. At number 6, we have the iconic Super Hang-On. Again, there's not much that could be said about this. It's basically Outrun on a super bike. It's a fantastic game. Number 5, Top Gear 2. There's a lot of arguments to be had whether or not you think the Super NES version of Outrun 2 is better than the Genesis version. I am in the camp that believes the Genesis version is the better version. Better frame rate, better visual effects. I just love it all around. I have Top Gear 2 for the Sega Genesis, a physical cart, and there's just so much endless replay involved. If you wanted to beat the game, it probably would take you over 2 hours to beat it, and it's time well spent. It's a quality title. Okay, it's all filler, all killer, and that's why we put Top Gear 2 at number 5 on the list. At number 4, I've got Lotus 2 Rex, again from the same dev team as Top Gear 2. Those two titles are kind of interchangeable, if you will. You know, you could put Lotus 2 at number 5 if you wanted. I recently beat Lotus 2, at least the time trial aspect of that game, and I love it. I love Lotus 2 Rex. I freaking love it. So that's why we put Lotus 2 at number 4. Fantastic game. Number 3, I put Formula 1, and I've also lumped Formula 1 Championship Edition in, which only came out in PAL regions, because it's basically the same game. Formula 1 is amazing. It's an amazing racing. Anyone who's played it will tell you how good it is, man. I've posted a few videos of it over the last couple of days, and I'm having a lot of fun with it. I love Formula One. When I get lowered into the ground someday, in my coffin, I will be clutching Formula One, and you'll have to pry that game out of my cold, dead hands if you want to play it. So yeah, number 3, well-deserved Formula One. Number 2, again, I don't think you can argue with me here. We've got Super Monaco GP, and we've lumped in Super Monaco GP2 Art and Senna Presents. So, yeah, again, what else could be said about this game? This game could easily have been number 1. It is, again, endless replay value. One of the greatest racing games of the 16-bit era. And this is one of the shining examples of why it pays off to be a Genesis collector. It's titles like this. Old school Sega games where Sega put their blood, sweat, and tears into a game like this. And Super Monaco GP, if you're not going to have it at number 1, you've got to have it at number 2. I don't think there's any questions asked about that. So, on to number 1, and it's as no surprise to anyone, this is number 1. Outrun for the Sega Genesis. I love this version. This is my favorite version of this game. I've played them all. I've played the TurboGrafx version, which is really good. Tougher than a cheapsteak. The problem with the original arcade version, unless you're playing it on the Switch and you can increase the time limit, it is fucking hard to make it all the way to the end of the race because it's a quarter muncher, okay? And it makes it frustrating. And the arcade version is super fucking fast. The same speed at which this is when you play it on hyper mode, which is really fucking annoying. And that's why I like this game the most. When you're playing it on standard mode, it's at a good pace. The control is impeccable. I've never seen control so good in a racing game. I fucking love this game. If I ever see this out in the wild again, I'm going to pick up every single fucking copy I can find. Okay? Greatest racing game on the Genesis. Okay? Probably the greatest game on the Genesis. The main reason why I'm so happy I decided to start collecting for the Genesis over, perhaps getting involved with the Super NES. No way, man. This thing holds some serious sentimental value. And if you were doing a top 20 list and you left this game off your list, you should be fucking ashamed of yourself, seriously. Anyways, that's going to do it for me. That's my top 20 list. If you want to put in the comments below what you think I got wrong, hey, I'm not perfect. This list is open to interpretation. I'd like to think that this list is more of an accurate representation of the top 20 definitive Sega Genesis racing games over that other ridiculous list we talked about a few days ago. So hopefully this took that sour taste out of your mouth. And yeah, so that's it for me. Gonna cut it off here right at the 24-minute mark. I appreciate you guys watching. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good night.